Hi, my name is Cindy Rang with the Fabric Patch in Ephrata, Washington. You can find us at fabricpatch.net, and we are working on the Westport block of the month, and today we're going to do setting blocks. Okay, last time I told you that we were going to do block number 6 and the setting blocks, but I changed my mind just a little bit. The setting blocks, there's quite a few to make, so I think we're just going to focus on setting blocks because there's 2 different ones to make. And the setting blocks, if you look here, what it is it's these, and I think there's 10 of these that we're supposed to make, and they are the block with this little square right here. And then the others, and I think you either make 8 or 10, depending upon which size you're making, is this one right here. So they're very similar, a whole bunch of little 9 patches in a 9 patch essentially. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to show you 2 tiny little cutting and piecing, and well, I guess it's 3 tricks. I'm going to show you a cutting trick, a pressing trick, and a piecing trick. So let's look at the pattern. So if you guys are doing this, you should have the pattern. And we do have the pattern and some kits available on our website. We don't have a downloadable PDF version. You might be able to get that from Whirligig Designs if that's what you prefer. We do have kits out of the fabric that they chose for the block of the month, or if you're doing your own thing, of course, it has all of the pictures of all of the blocks and the suggested colorways if you're looking for either a warm or a cool colorway or whatever else you'd like to do. All right, so the setting blocks are block number 11 and block number 12, and you'll see they're essentially the same. There's just one tiny little thing that's a little bit different. So first, I want to show you a little cutting trick. So let's look down here. Okay, let's talk about cutting squares and rectangles. So this is our background strip, and we've cut this 3.5 inches, and we're going to cut it into a couple of squares and a couple of rectangles for each block. So what will happen is oftentimes people will end up wanting to cut things using their mat as measurement, and I just want to mention that that's typically not a good thing to do. Partly because as you're cutting, things can shift just a little bit and get crooked, and also things can shift this way and they'll end up being shorter or longer than they should. So you should always measure with your ruler. I tend to prefer a non-slip ruler, and what I usually do is I just, of course, cut off my selvage first, and when I cut my selvage off, I line up along that cut edge so that I know that I have all of the selvage, and then I have a nice straight edge, and I'm going to come over and I'm going to measure a 1, 2, 3.5. And if I'm doing that, then what can happen is I'm lining up right along the edge here and right on that cut line. So it really doesn't matter where this is. If you feel like you're distracted and you really want to use the lines, I would suggest you just flip over your mat and use just the plain basic green. And then as soon as you've cut that, I just slide that aside, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the next one. The other thing that we tend to do is I will use a wet erase marker. If you've watched any of our videos, you've seen us do this multiple times. They look like this, and it's just a wet erase. We have them on our website, or you can find them just about anywhere. And what happens is if you are nervous about getting off just a little bit and forgetting which line you're using, I'm just going to double check that I'm at 1, 2, 3.5, and I just put just a little reminder that that's the line that I'm looking for. And what's nice about it being a wet erase marker is that I'm not going to smudge it off with my hand. It's not going to be wiped off onto the fabric. It's not going to go away until I add a little bit of either a wet paper towel, or if I just lick my finger and wipe it off. And so it'll stay there for as long as I'm cutting this block, so that I have this nice little reminder that this is where my 3.5 inch cut is. And I just make sure that I've made that cut. Oops. And then I can just keep going wherever I'm at on this strip. The other size that we're cutting is a 6.5, and this just happens to be a 6.5 inch ruler. So what's nice about that is I can line it up right on that edge, right on this edge here, and then same thing is happening. And if sometimes if what happens is all of a sudden you notice that you're straight right here, but you have some crookedness happening here, it's just because of the fluid movement of the fabric. Sometimes that happens, and sometimes you just have to straighten up your edge again. It hasn't happened yet, but oftentimes that'll happen, especially if you're cutting a whole bunch of small, maybe 2.5 inch squares. It's difficult really to make it the entire length of the strip without needing to do something different. All right, so what you're going to need for your setting blocks are some 6.5 inch by 3.5 inch rectangles and some 3.5 by 3.5 inch squares. We're going to set these aside for a minute. You have quite a few of those to cut. Your pattern will tell you how many. The other thing that you need to cut is some strips. And when you cut your strips, it's pretty basic information. They talk to you about the size that you're cutting, and they are showing you that you're going to make 2 different strip sets. And both of them are they're each going to look like this. One is background, your dark color and background. The other one is opposite. The most critical thing about this is pressing. So when you press it, the pattern does show you that what you're going to do is you're going to essentially press to the dark. So there's little arrows on the pattern showing that you're pressing from the light into the dark on this one. And on this one, you're pressing from the light out to the dark. The reason that this is important is that then you don't have to pin. Everything is just going to nestle absolutely perfectly, and I'm going to show you that. And in fact, the other thing that you can do is you could even, if you felt extremely brave, you could go ahead and lay these on top of each other and then go ahead and cut. We're going to cut these into 1.5 inch pieces. We've already cut these into 1.5. And we're going to do basically the exact same thing. I'm going to go ahead and clean up my edge down here. And I am going to go ahead and cut 2 at a time. And I could go ahead and get my marker and mark my little spot so I know I'm at 1.5. Right after this video, if you don't change anything, we have loaded up the shape cut tutorial. A shape cut ruler, if you happen to have one of those, this would be a perfect opportunity to use that ruler. It's a special little ruler that has a little cut every 1/2 inch, so it's easy when you're cutting a bunch of stuff. All right, I'm going to go ahead and keep going, but what I'm going to end up doing is when you sew these together, you can pin them if you'd like to, but what's really nice is that if you've pressed them properly, what you'll see is that's absolutely going to lock right into place right there and right into place right there. So what I usually do is I'm just going to go ahead and sew the 2 together, and then after I've done that, take another one of these and sew that on. So you're going to cut 2, you're going to actually end up needing a whole extra strip of this one. That makes sense, right? Because you've got 3 pieces per 9 patch. So you're going to make all of your 9 patches, and again, the pattern's going to tell you how many you're going to make. All right, so here are a couple of 9 patches. You will need 3 per block, and then all you're doing is your little squares. You're putting one here and one here, and then you're putting a rectangle here and a rectangle here. So really the best thing is to go ahead and sew this row first, then sew this row and this row, and then sew this row, and then what will happen is that seam will line up, that seam will line up, and you'll have this perfect little setting block. And that's how you make setting block number 11. Now, setting block number 12, I'm just going to show you, there's only one teeny tiny little difference. And the little difference is that instead of this, you're going to put in this one. And then I'm just going to cut a 3.5 inch block out of this same fabric and put that right there. Should have cut that, and I'll show you that. Okay, there it is. So again, same thing. Sew this row, sew this row, sew this row, sew them together. when you press, I'm just going to mention one other thing. As you're pressing these, at some point, you just want to press them open and press them flat. I've showed you the clipping trick before. You could do that if you'd like to do that, but it's important just to go ahead and press and keep everything flat. After you've made those, again, your pattern is going to tell you how many you need for each one. And I think, again, I'm pretty sure that it's 10. Okay, right. So I think setting block number, which one? Let me get them right. Setting block number 12 is the one with the square. And you can see that's what's making kind of the really cool design. And then setting block number 11 are the ones that we have on that outside edge that you'll see out here and all the way around. All right, you have quite a few of those to make, so we thought we would go ahead and get those out of the way. And then our next, and again, I think the next video that's going to automatically load if you leave everything the way that it is going to be our shape cut tutorial, in case that's something that you want to use for your strip sets and you're cutting your strips and cutting your blocks. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to go on to block number 6. So thanks.
Thank you for watching our video. We invite you to leave a comment, hit the like button, or better yet, subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. You can also visit our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or Pinterest pages, or find all of those things and our online store at fabricpatch.net.